Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heroes Like You podcast, where we explore the lives of people just like you and I who have been able to overcome challenges in their lives and go on to accomplish great things. My name is Joe Belliston, and today's hero is Clint Pulver. Clint was first introduced to me by my brother Thomas, and if you haven't heard of Clint, you need to get to know him. He quickly became one of my favorite people. He's got a dynamic personality and a fantastic story. Clint went from someone who had a dream to having that dream shattered in an instant, and yet he seemed to never let it faze him, and he's gone on to accomplish a lot of really great things. I really think you're going to enjoy my conversation with Clint Pulver. Well, Clint, from what I know of you, you're a pilot, you're a professional drummer, you're an actor, you're a leader. You've been featured in Business Q magazine as one of their top 40 under 40 as a keynote speaker. You've been on America's Got Talent. You've appeared in movies, including one of my favorites, School of Rock with Jack Black, and the list could go on. And that's more than a lot of people accomplish in a career. And you're a very accomplished speaker. You travel extensively speaking to businesses and youth groups, trying to inspire and motivate them. What is your message when you go and speak to these organizations?
Yeah, so the message kind of varies between, whether if I'm speaking to kids or if I'm speaking to adults or educators or I'm speaking to a corporate audience. It just depends. If I do the corporate space, which we're doing more of now, it really consists of it's called the Undercover Speaker Program, the Undercover Millennial Program. I started it about 5 years ago, and we go undercover into these organizations, and we find the real story of what's working and what's not working with their employees. And we provide real actionable data, and it's kind of think Undercover Boss with a twist. And we have hidden cameras, and we pixelate all the employees' faces. We protect their identity. We create a little highlight reel, and then we present that to the executives, the management team, the sales force, whatever it may be, to kind of just show this is the culture. This is what's working. This is what's not working, and we give real, honest, authentic feedback that's valuable, and then we cater that into a keynote that's full of entertainment, drums, inspiration, but also actionable content that helps them to create an organization that their people never want to leave. That's the goal.
So are you literally undercover when you do this?
Correct.
You're essentially an employee going in and looking at the nuts and bolts of everything.
Yeah, I actually go in as someone who's seeking employment. So I would go in as someone just off the street. So say if Subway hired us, or Chick-fil-A, or Verizon Wireless, or maybe like a retail outlet store, or even like a hospitality company, I would go in as someone who's just looking for a job. And I would go up to the front desk, or I'd go up to the person that's on the floor, or whoever is the first person I contact, and just say, hey, I'm just interested in applying for the job. What's it like to work here? And then we just take off from there. And they have no idea that they're being filmed. So the honest feedback, it's real. And again, we always protect the employee's identity. The purpose behind it is not who you're going to fire or who you're going to promote in the organization. It's about what can we do better, and then what can we keep doing really well that's working.
That sounds like so much fun. As someone who loves detective movies, that sounds like a dream job.
It's a blast.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it provides just good content, good actionable ideas that help organizations get better.
Very cool. When you go and speak to youth groups, what's your message to them?
Yeah, so we do a lot of anti-bullying assemblies. We do a lot of kindness assemblies. I also do a lot of leadership conferences. So we speak for FBLA, DECA, 4-H, the FFA groups, all of the big high school leadership programs. We do a lot of their state and national conventions.
Very cool. Well, before all the accolades and these cool jobs and all the success that you've had, you were a kid just like anyone else. Take us back to your childhood, if you would, and tell us what life was like for Clint Pulver growing up.
I had a great childhood. I grew up in Heber City, Utah, a small town, kind of where everybody knew everybody, and I had great parents who supported and encouraged. A lot of my younger years were heavily involved in athletics, and then also in music. That became a major part of my life. as I got kind of into the junior high school years. But childhood was awesome. In my opinion, I mean, I grew up in the country where we literally in the summers we'd wake up and you just went outside and you found something to do, and I loved it. I had a great childhood.
Awesome. You tell a story about elementary school, and I never get tired of hearing this story. You had what some teachers would call a problem. You were distracting to students, you wouldn't sit still, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. I don't know what little boy likes to be cooped up in a classroom for 7 hours a day, but it was getting a little out of hand for them, and then you met Mr. Jensen, or Mr. Jensen came and helped you solve that problem. Can you tell that story about Mr. Jensen and what you were going
Yeah,
through during that time?
yeah, you bet. So I mean, I was a kid that I still to this day have a hard time sitting still. I love to move, love to be going, love to, and for me, when I was younger, I loved to tap. I loved to, it was just not really so much nervous energy. I just liked the sound. I liked, it helped me to focus, it helped me to concentrate. And, but if you're sitting next to somebody who's constantly tapping their foot or they're clicking their pen, it gets annoying super fast. And I got nicknamed the Twitcher, the Tapper. I got teased. I got bullied. All the teachers. It was frustrating to have me in the class. I got sent to the principal's office. I remember the principal said, "Clint, I need you to just try sitting on your hands. Okay, when you feel like you got to tap, just sit on your hands. Okay, I can't have you tapping anymore. I can't have you hitting things." And that worked for about 5 seconds in the class. It just didn't work. And I'll never forget, I had a teacher one day, and his name was Mr. Jensen, and he looked at me as I was tapping in class, and he said, I need to see you after class. You and I need to sit down. We need to have a conversation. And I remember thinking, this is it. I'm going to get kicked out. I'm in trouble again. And class got dismissed. It was a completely empty classroom minus Mr. Jensen and myself. And he pulled me to the back of the room. He pulled up a chair, sat me down, and he said, "Do you know why we're having this conversation?" And I said, "Yeah, it's because I tap." And he said, I know who you are. He said, you're the kid that everybody talks about. You're the kid that gets teased. You're the kid that taps. You do it in my class. You do it in everybody else's class. You're the problem kid. You're the kid that's on the list. You're the kid that got sent to the principal's office." He said, "But I've been watching you." And he said, "It's crazy." He said, "I watch what you'll do." He said, you'll do something with your right hand, but then at the same time with your left hand, simultaneously, you can do a different rhythm, and you switch it all the time." And he said, in big adult words, we call that ambidextrous. And I was like, "Amba what?" Like, I had no idea what that meant. And he said, can you try this? He said, "Can you tap your head and rub your belly at the same time?" And I gave it a go, and I could do it. And then he said, now switch. Now rub your head and tap your belly. Now switch back again. Now switch again. And literally, without thinking about it, I could go back and forth. And in this moment, he leaned back and he laughed and he said, "You know what, Clint? I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer." And I didn't really know the significance of that moment for me in my life. But I am a person that has always believed that a single moment can change a person's life forever. Just a single moment. Our lives, they're made up of moments. Some of them are significant, some of them are epic, some of them are tragic, some of them are hard. But it's the significance of that time that makes it a moment, that makes it something you don't forget. And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back in his desk and he opened up the top drawer and he reached inside and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. My very first pair. And that was that moment that literally changed my life. He was the person in my young years that looked at me in a way that nobody else did. He looked at me and said, "You know what? There's an opportunity here, not a problem." He saw the problem as the solution, and in doing so, I was able to write a better story. That was 21 years ago, and I'll never forget when Mr. Jensen, he took those sticks and he put them in my hands, and he said, "Clint, here's the deal." He said, "I'm going to give you these sticks, but you got to promise me that you'll try to keep them in your hands as much as you can. Just keep them in your hands and let's see what happens. And I can honestly say, 21 years ago, almost literally to this day, I have tried my best to keep my promise to Mr. Jensen. And I've toured and recorded all over the world playing drums, played with various artists, venues, America's Got Talent. I ended up going to college. I graduated in 2012 with zero college debt, zero. And that was because of music scholarships. And I don't say all those things to go, wow, good for you, Clint, or wow, look at you, or wow, that's amazing. I say those things because of one person who decided to see what was right with an individual instead of seeing what's wrong. And in doing so, I've lived a better story.
What an awesome story. And there's a great YouTube video about that. And it just gives me chills every time I watch it.
Thanks, man.
Clint, there are a lot of kids that may have been in a similar situation that you were in, or that may be in a similar situation that you were in, but not all of them have a Mr. Jensen that comes into their life.
Correct.
And a lot of these kids are struggling to the point of wanting to take their own lives. And in fact, suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 15 to 24 right now. Yep. And in our state of Utah, it's the number one leading cause of death for that age group. How could we be a Mr. Jensen to these people who are going through dark times and have hit rock bottom?
Yeah, I think you need to, and there have been many kids that after an assembly or after a speech, they come up and they go, I don't have a Mr. Jensen. I don't have somebody like that in my life. I could never go to my parents. I couldn't go to my teachers. I don't have any really close friends. And to those kids, Joe, I've always told them, then go be a Mr. Jensen. Go be that person, because eventually if you believe in other people, most of the time, eventually people will believe in you. And it's that full circle approach. Mr. Jensen was the person in my life that did two things. He communicated my potential and he communicated my worth. So well to the point that I saw it within myself. And if you look at, suicide, anxiety, depression, a lot of things that kids are facing and struggling with, a lot of the core root and the issues behind that is a lack of worth, and it's a lack of potential. It's a lack of future perspective of what could be, of what could happen. And a lot of the times we don't see that within ourselves. On average, young people have anywhere from about 15,000 to 60,000 thoughts in one day. Some people might say that are listening, I know a few that barely have 12. But on average, young people have 15,000 to 60,000 thoughts in a day. But what they've also found is that 80% of those thoughts are negative in some way, shape, or form. Thoughts like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not cool enough, I don't sit at the cool table at lunch, I don't wear the nice clothes, I don't drive the fancy car, I only got 56 likes on my Insta pic. What? Why doesn't Jessica open up my Snap? Or why does Jessica like Tom and not me?
Right.
And some people might laugh about some of those things, or they might seem trivial or small. But in reality, if you take 80% of negativity and you compound that day after day after day, it's easy. It is easy to forget who you are, your worth, your potential, and that who you are is enough. And I, so much of when it comes to addiction, depression, anxiety, a lot of what they're finding, and I've found this to be the case too, is it's a lack of connection with yourself and connection with others. I am a person that has always believed that every young person is one success story away from carrying somebody. Mm-hmm. And that we need people in our lives to believe in us. It's the power of a Mr. Jensen. My dad, he always said growing up, he said, Clint, if you want to be really good at basketball, hang out by the hoop. And it's been a lesson to me that it's true that you are 24 hours away from anybody on the planet.
Right.
24 hours away. And if we have the ability to, first off, reach out and to communicate potential and worth in other people, to be that day maker, to be the person that shows people their worth. And there's some strategies and ways to do that. But also there's that responsibility of the person who's suffering to reach out. There's power in asking. I try to teach kids that it's okay to ask. A lot of kids feel like in the society that we grow up, whether it be in Utah or in New York or in Texas or wherever it is, that it's not cool to ask for help, or it's scary to ask for help. And we do some things in assemblies, and we bring people up on stage, and there's different exercises that we go through to show the value of what happens when you ask for help and how willing most people are to help those that ask.
Right.
But then we also follow that up with, you never need permission to help somebody. You never need permission to help somebody. It kind of goes full circle.
I love that. And I love what you said about significant moments and how even tragedies or trials that we go through can be significant and help us write a better story for ourselves.
Yes.
Now, I want to dive deeper into this connection that you're talking about, because in our world of social media and instant communication, it feels like we should be more connected than ever. And yet we see the number of suicides increasing.
Yep.
We see depression increasing in our society. If being connected should help us feel more loved and more included, what's the disconnect? Why are we more connected than ever and seemingly less happy?
Yeah, and I think you have to define connection. Is connection a like on Facebook? Is connection a message on Facebook? For some people, maybe. But I think that social media connection and being, LinkedIn or connected or tagged or whatever we want to call it within that world, how many friends, how many followers, how many likes, that connection is different than one-on-one relationship, communication, interpersonal connection. And we do a lot of parent classes, and a lot of parents are struggling to connect with their teenager. And we've actually used technology as a source to increase connection. For example, we challenge, one of the things we challenge is parents to text their teenager for a week and just ask them questions. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them how school was. Ask them how their friends are. Talk to them about, have kind of somewhat a conversation through social media. But then at the end of that week, ask the teen a hard question. Ask the teen the question of, hey, have you ever struggled with anxiety? Or have you ever been bullied? Or, what's the hardest part of high school right now for you? And what we found that at the end of that week, that kids, just through the communication through technology, they will open up more through a text message than they ever would in person.
Wow.
And what this does is it then allows the opportunity for the parent and the child to then connect in person, sitting down, where a parent could then go a week later and say, hey, John, can I talk to you about some things that we've just talked about through text message? Can I? And it's crazy how using technology, speaking their language a little bit. It's in a world, Joe, right now where, as crazy as this might, Instagram, it's not going away. Facebook's not going away.
Right.
Text messaging's not going away. And the world changes, right? We don't ride around in a horse and buggy, and we don't have landlines anymore, right? Things change.
Right.
But kids are still kids. Human connection, human needs, core principles still have to remain, even though the world is changing.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that we can't use some of these features to allow us to connect better. And I mean, I would say, so many times it's parents that rag on the kids, and the kids are so connected, and they're always on Instagram, and they're always on. You look at stats, most adults are on their phone just as much, or if not more, than the teenager is. And it's not just a young person epidemic, it's an older person epidemic as well. And I think parameters should be set. I think if your child has a cell phone, there should be a contract in place for you as the adult as well as for the kid. I think setting healthy parameters, there's got to be balance. There's got to be structure. We're giving kids sometimes, I think, technology too young in a brain and a situation and a life experience where they don't know how to handle such a device that could
Yes.
literally ruin their lives.
Right.
So it's something that we have to embrace, but also learn to work through and not let it replace true connection, but utilize it to enhance that. I encourage two parents, do you have an Instagram? Do you have a Snapchat? Do you have a Facebook? Not saying you have to have those things, but it's amazing how much kids respond or do not respond in certain ways based off of if their parents have an account. There was a kid that came up, this was last week, at an assembly, and he said, "Hey," he's like, "You'll never believe this." He's like, "My dad shared my post." And it was this weird little way that this kid, he was able to connect with dad in a way that, to them, that it is somewhat their world. Instagram and Facebook, it is, whether we like to admit that or not, especially if your child's in high school or college, most kids have that. And so we have to think, okay, how can we connect? How can we still advocate? How can we still love? How can we still support that allows us to then, when we're in person, when we have those moments, that connection is able to be enhanced, that we don't replace that.
And that kid was probably really proud that his dad did that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, raved about it.
Wow. So the key is connection, regardless of how we do it, whether it's through face-to-face or social media or text or on the phone or whatever it is, we need to be connecting and truly connecting to each other.
Yeah, and I would say I would still advocate heavily on face-to-face, on personal connection. The goal is to use technology, social media, whatever it may be, to lead to that person-to-person connection.
Right.
That conversation, those moments, those memories, those experiences, the hugs, the support, the leaning, the lift, all of that should translate to real connection, whatever that is to you, whatever that feels like to you. If you're not feeling it through Instagram or social media, then you need to drive it to something that fulfills you as a human. And usually that is always interpersonal, face-to-face, conversational connection that proves to be the best.
Boy, that is so, so good. Clint, you mentioned when you were talking about growing up, you had a great childhood. You seem like a really happy person. You've had a lot of success in your career. A lot of people might look at you and say, Clint has the idealistic life. Of course he's happy. Of course he's all this. But I'm of the belief that life doesn't happen without opposition for anybody. Has there been a time when you've experienced extreme adversity in your life? And what have you done to face that head on and overcome it?
Always. There's always adversity. There's always affliction. There's always hardship. There's always roadblocks, pitfalls. For me, this story and where I'm at right now in my life was never supposed to happen. This was not what I grew up wanting to do. This is not what I grew up. I never said, man, when I grow up, I want to be a professional speaker. I want to go out and that was not the goal. The goal was to fly helicopters. I wanted to fly. There was nothing that sounded cooler to me than being a life flight helicopter pilot and saving people's lives. And aviation, I ate, slept, drank it, breathed it. It was my life. I had every toy helicopter that you could buy from Toys R Us that was hanging from my ceiling as a young kid. I loved it. And I graduated a senior in high school with my private pilot's license. And one of the greatest moments of my life was when I soloed as an aviator, flew an airplane by myself. I could barely drive, and I was flying, and I was well on my way. And I had the opportunity. I went and served a mission for my church for 2 years after I graduated. I left when I was 19, and I got back. I was 21. I had to renew my driver's license, and I went to the DMV. And just a glorious place, the good old DMV.
We all love it.
The line that day, Joe, was crazy. I waited in line for like an hour and a half, and I'll never forget, she called my number. It was number 242, And I walked up, and she looked at my paperwork, and she told me to put my head in the black box. We've all done this, right? That
Yes, your
little
eye
black
test,
box.
right?
Yeah, test your eye vision. And I pushed my head in, and she's like, "Okay, read the letters." And I said, "Ma'am, the screen's just going white." And she said, "Well, you got to push harder." And I was like, "Ma'am, I'm pushing as hard as I can." She's like, "Push again." And I pushed, screen went white. And I looked at her and I said, "I think it's broken. Can I go to another machine? Can I go to another booth?" And she looked at me and she said, "Listen, I've been here for 7.5 hours today. Okay, I've seen 87 people. Every single one of them stuck their head in the device and read the letters. I need you to read the letters." And I go back the third time. I put my head in, screen goes white. I can't read the letters. She comes from around the counter, pushes me out of the way, puts her head in the black box, and reads CKGELFZWY.
In that order.
In that order.
That's remarkable that you remember the number and the letters.
Oh, and she looked at me and she said, "You're telling me you can't see the letters?" And I said, I can't see the letters." And she said, "Honey, I think you're blind." And I said, I stopped her. I said, "Ma'am, listen." I said, "Listen, I'm having a conversation with you right now." I said, "I see you, okay? I drove here today." And she looked back at me and she said, well, you're not driving back. I promise you that." And I'll never forget, she denied my paperwork.
Wow.
And stamped denied driving privileges, did not pass vision test. I was under house arrest at the DMV. I couldn't leave. I called my mom and I said, "Mom, help." I said, "This is the situation. This is what's going on." And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I don't know. I didn't pass the vision test." And long story short, I ended up at the Moran Eye Center at the University of Utah with one of the top leading authorities in a rare and degenerative eye disease known as keratoconus. And what that is it's obviously it's an eye disease that's degenerative, meaning that my eyes get worse and worse and worse. It's the thinning of the cornea. And my corneas as a 21-year-old kid were about as bad as an 87-year-old's.
Wow.
And that was a tough day.
Yeah.
Because I sat there in that cold white clinic, and I'll never forget when the doctor, he looked at me and he said, "Clint, listen." He's like, "I don't think you understand the severity of what's happening to your eyes." He said, "You've got two options." He said, "Well, you're either going to go blind by age 31, 35 max, or we do what's called corneal transplants, where we take your corneas out and we replace them with a donor's cornea."
Wow.
And most of the time, we have about a 50-50 success rate on that.
Wow. Gosh.
And if it doesn't take, then your eyes there's nothing we can do to save your eyes. And if it does, then congratulations, we saved your eyesight, but your eyesight won't get any better. And I just thought the way that I saw, and over that course of 2 years after I graduated, that my eyes had just slowly digressed to the point that I didn't
You didn't realize it.
Yeah, and I just thought if I needed to see better, I would just squint. And all keratoconus patients, we learn to squint our eyes, and that will cup your cornea so that you can see better. And so if I just needed to see something, I would squint, I would walk closer, and I just thought I saw the way that everybody else saw. And I'll never forget, he said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to fly." I said, I want to be a pilot." I said, "Doc, nobody wants to fly more than me."
And you were on your way. You had your license.
Oh,
At one
yeah,
point you had your license.
absolutely. I had just gotten home. I was ready to jump right back into flight school and fly professionally. That was the goal. That was the dream. And literally in that moment, there I was as a young person who had my eye on the sky. And then I watched as the sky fell in all around me. I went from someone that had purpose and direction and drive and knew what I wanted to do to I literally had no idea. I had no backup plan. I had no plan B. That was what I wanted to do. And that was a tough day. Still hard. Every time a helicopter flies over, I go to an air show. I mean, it's still hard.
Wow.
And, but I think, now looking back, that I just wasn't supposed to be there. That's not where I was supposed to end up. And, I, in a way, I'm massively grateful that I didn't. And I think that, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, as a listener, whatever you believe, that there's sometimes that maybe it's just the perception of that, sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can fall together.
That's so good.
And that's what happened for me. And as tough and as frustrating as that was, my mom always told me, she said, Clint, it always gets better. No matter what, it always gets better for everybody. It always gets better. And I held on to that. And with that perspective, that really shaped a better reality. And if we can do that for ourselves, and by surrounding ourselves with good people, focusing on the opportunity, not the problem, focusing on the solution, trying to figure out what's right with our lives, with the lives of others, with our situation, that's what opened up the lens to miracles. That's what opened up the opportunity to really craft something that in my life has allowed me to live a life of significance, not just a life of success.
Yes.
And there's a big difference. And I think, sometimes we strive to be the best in the world, or we're trying to make the most money, or have the best house, or have the best 401k, or the best retirement plan, or the nicest clothes, or whatever it is. We try to be the best in the world. And I figured out that it's not so much about being the best in the world as it is about being the best for the world. And I have found way more joy and opportunity and just happiness in striving to be the best for the world. And it's made all the difference.
That is so good. And talk about a significant moment in front of that doctor. Your career, your dreams are just shattered right in front of you in an instant. And once you got over that, you were able to write the story that you're living now.
Correct.
A lot of people have a hard time seeing that, though. It always gets better, your mom says, and I completely agree with that. How hard is it, though, in that moment when it just looks dark in front of you, you have nothing, you've been devastated. How hard is it to really come out of that and say, you know what, this happened, I have no control over it, I can't do anything about it, I'm going to move on and make the best of my life?
Yeah, there's so many things I can say on that. There's a story that Ann Landers wrote a column about a kid named Johnny who passed away, but every day he had this column that he would read, and it was the power of just for today. The article was called Just for Today. And the power of the moment, the power of what you can control and what you can't control. And I believe the two major factors, the two things in my life that have allowed me to push forward despite not knowing what's ahead, despite not even really wanting to push forward, is Sir Isaac Newton said that if I have ever seen further in my life, it was because I was standing on the shoulders of giants that allowed me to see.
Yeah.
So one being the power of association of good people, good friends, right? Classic Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn always said you become the average of the 5 people that you associate with most. Who are you hanging with? You want to get good at basketball? Hang out by the hoop. Doing whatever it took to associate with good people doing great things that despite the hardship, despite the frustration, despite my own challenges, lifted me, allowed me to see further. And then the second point is I would literally, there's power in going as far as you can see. And usually when you get there, you can see further. I believe in that. There's David Bednar is a man that I admire, and he talks about the power of doing that. You go as far as you can see, and generally when you get there, you can see further. And my mom always taught me, she said, Clint, little by little makes a little a lot. And I think sometimes we have to, sometimes people think that I got to be totally happy in the most horrible moments, or I've got to fix this now, or I've got to just buck up, or it's okay to like have the frustration. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to have down days. It's okay to not be perfect. We're all like that. Everybody goes through that. But what's not okay is, I think, dwelling there, staying there. I've always said God can't steer a parked car. You got to be moving, keep moving. And so, and even if all you can do is you get out of bed, then good. Usually I bet when you get out of bed, you're going to be able to see a little bit further. And then the next day, let's get out of bed and let's get dressed. Great. I bet when you get dressed, you're going to be able to see a little bit further. And it's that small progression, that small progress, you're also surrounding yourself with great people that help you to help you to live. I call it lift and lean. Lift and lean. You got to lift others so that you have some people to lean on. Because if we don't lift others, there's no one's going to be around to lean on. And same thing for anybody going through a problem. It's the power of surrounding yourself with great people, doing whatever it takes to associate with people that see potential and worth in you, and then having the commitment to just little by little make a little a lot.
Boy, that is so good, Clint. I think you hit it right on the head. You know, Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Compound Effect that I love, and it's about that, about making the small choices that become big things over time.
Absolutely.
We're not going to run a marathon tomorrow, but let's get up and walk down the street.
Yep.
Then tomorrow we're going to walk around the block, and little by little it gets better and better and better.
That's right.
That is so good. Well, Clint, it's been inspiring to hear your story and learn from you. You've given us so much already, but if you were to sit down with a member of our audience who might be struggling, going through a really difficult time, what would you say to that person to encourage them and inspire them to not give up and to be able to live life to the fullest?
I would share with them a quote that was shared with me in a hard time, in a tough situation, and in a time where I was totally lost, Joe, where I wanted to fly. I didn't have that anymore. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And there was a mentor in my life who shared a quote with me by Oscar Wilde. And that quote is, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. For most people, merely exist. And that's all."
Oh, that's good. That's
to
good.
live, like to really live. And to value that opportunity and to value the potential of who you are, but also what you can become. Mark Twain said there's two important days in a person's life: the day you're born, and then the day you figure out why. And you have that chance, whoever you are, at whatever stage in your life, if you feel like you're struggling, or if you feel like you don't have that figured out, or even if you feel like you do have it figured out, there's still always the opportunity to write a better story. Life is magic. And if you look at, the potential of, I got the chance to really live, not just exist, and you can design your life. Like, live that life by design, not by default. And in doing so, I think that's what helps with regret. I think that's what helps with the midlife crisis. I think that's what helps with maybe depression or anxiety. The ability to just, through specificity, design little details to craft out what that's going to look like for you. Especially if you're young. If you're young and you're listening to this, if you're in that decade of decisions, 15 to 25, that age range, I mean, the world is yours to take, especially in the day and age that we live today. I mean, there's so much potential. There's so much opportunity. Live. Don't just exist. And in doing so, if you do that, you live that life of significance, not just that life of success. And we as the world will never forget you for it. You don't forget people like that. You don't forget the significant ones. So that would be my message. Live. Don't just exist.
That is so good, Clint. It has seriously been a pleasure talking to you today. I've been inspired. I've been motivated. I could go on all day, but we've got to let you go. So on behalf of our audience, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. We're much better for it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We could go for another 3 hours talking about the things that Clint gave us today. I hope we all know a Mr. Jensen in our lives who has seen our potential, who has given us opportunities, and who has helped us to write a new story. But like Clint said, if we don't, maybe we need to be that Mr. Jensen and see the potential in others, believe in other people, and then they will in turn believe in us. And I couldn't agree more with Clint's mom. Things always get better. Now, I know there's a lot of people that would probably disagree with that, but I believe that no matter what our situation is, if we keep a positive attitude and look for the good in ourselves, in other people, and in the world around us, things can't help but get better. So let's not let ourselves become a victim. Let's go out and take whatever situation we're in and write a better story and help those around us write a better story as well. Well, a big thanks to Clint Pulver for taking time to share his story with us and inspire us. And a big thanks to you, the listener. I really appreciate it. If you like the podcast, please go to iTunes and leave a review. It would really mean a lot to me. My name is Joe Belliston. Thank you so much for listening. It's a great day to be alive. We'll see you next time, and God bless.